Other killers came after Dexter's life, but the brain surgeon came after his identity. He tore down the code, manipulated the people closest to him, and made sure Dexter's final kill wasn't part of any ritual. In this video, I'm going to break down why Daniel Vogel, the brain surgeon, is Dexter's most terrifying villain. One thing is he killed in a way no one else did. The brain surgeon's murder ritual was more psychologically disturbing than any villain Dexter had faced before. Throughout 8 seasons, Miami has seen countless creative killers, but none approached murder with such clinical precision and psychological intention as Daniel Vogel did. From the Ice Truck Killer's artistic dismemberments to Trinity's ritual bathtub killings, the city had experienced a share of horror, but the brain surgeon took killing to an entirely new level of disturbing sophistication. The first victim, Robert Bailey, initially appeared to be simply shot and dumped near water. However, upon closer examination, Dexter and investigators discovered that his skull had been methodically sawed open, with a specific portion of the brain, the anterior insular cortex, surgically removed. She knew it was specifically the part of the brain that processes empathy. Dr. Vogel immediately knew what was going on.
It's too early to say, but maybe he was wanting to perform some kind of experiment.
The killer was making a statement about human connection itself. The precision was what struck everyone. Clean, professional cuts that required medical knowledge. The victims had been kept alive for days beforehand, dehydrated, starved, their fear cultivated before the final act. When Leonard Welk's body appeared, the pattern continued. Another precisely excised brain section, another message. Then came the DVD showing Lyle Sussman being forced to kill Welks before being executed himself. The brain surgeon was killing, but with that, he was also directing deaths like a theatrical production, simply because he could. As the body count grew, the deliberate cruelty became undeniable. The most horrifying revelation came when Zach Hamilton was discovered in Dexter's apartment with Make Your Own Kind of music still playing. The medical examiner confirmed what Dexter feared most. Unlike his own merciful method of sedating victims, Saxon had kept Zach conscious while sawing into his skull, ensuring maximum suffering throughout the procedure. This was torture elevated to an art form. If you're into deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I break down every killer, every code, and every messed up moment in Dexter. The brain surgeon understood that psychological terror was more devastating than physical pain. He carefully arranged each killing to send precise messages, whether to his mother or to Dexter himself. When Dexter discovered Zach's body, his reaction was unlike anything we've seen before. The man who had dismembered dozens of bodies was genuinely disturbed. Even Miami Metro's veteran homicide team was shaken by these crime scenes. Batista visibly paled when examining Bailey's skull, and Quinn had to step away from Zach's body. These kills proved that Saxon was someone who understood the intimate psychology of pain and deliberately inflicted it. He was perhaps the only villain who was more monstrous than Dexter himself, lacking even the twisted moral code that guided our protagonists. The brain surgeon's victims weren't killed quickly or mercifully. They were subjects in his ongoing exploration of suffering. Each death was a performance, designed to communicate something beyond the act itself. I still can't forget the image of Zach's open skull, knowing that he felt every second of that procedure. And if his ordinary victims received such treatment, just imagine what he had in store for those that he truly hated. Another thing about the brain surgeon was he was the truest psychopath. Daniel Vogel was the purest psychopath that Dexter had ever faced, making him especially terrifying even in a show filled with killers. While Dexter fought his dark urges and Trinity struggled with his demons, Saxon moved through life with ice-cold precision. He never really had any emotional outbursts, nor did he ever make any mistakes. The man always had perfect calculated control. Throughout the entire series, we've encountered many killers with various motivations, but none matched the sheer emotional void that was Oliver Saxon. Although we never actually saw it, his charm was flawless. At Jamie's party, he made Cassie laugh effortlessly, talking about beer with the moose on it. Even Dexter, who could usually spot a fellow predator, initially missed the danger. Saxon's performance as a normal boyfriend never slipped, not once. He maintained perfect eye contact, showed appropriate concern, and mirrored emotions with uncanny precision. Dr. Vogel herself, the expert who literally wrote the book on psychopaths, called him a perfect psychopath, completely empty of empathy or fear.
And the hallmark of a psychopath is
they have no empathy.
they have no empathy.
Even when she explained to Dexter what this meant, she seemed almost in awe of her son's condition. No one else she studied, not even Dexter, matched this level of emotional detachment. The most chilling moment came when he killed his own mother. It was done without hesitation or emotion, just a slash across Vogel's throat while looking Dexter dead in the eyes through the window. He didn't even blink as she bled out on the kitchen floor. He did it like he was taking out the trash. When most killers murder a family member, there's some emotional component, anger, jealousy, or twisted love. But with Saxon, there was nothing. nothing, just the mechanical removal of an obstacle. Later, when examining the crime scene footage, Dexter noticed something truly disturbing. Saxon's heart rate and breathing never changed during the kill. Even Dexter, with all his experience, felt something during his kills. Saxon was like a machine. Other killers had reasons. Some had their own twisted codes, emotional trauma, or dark urges. Saxon just killed because people were in his way. A man without limits is the most dangerous predator of all. I mean, how do you anticipate someone who doesn't feel fear? How do you intimidate someone who can't experience terror? This made Saxon arguably the only villain who is more monstrous than Dexter himself. If you thought that this emotional coldness was scary, wait until you see how he manipulated the entire system, because he avoided detection every step of the way. Saxon's most frightening quality was his ability to remain completely undetected by law enforcement despite his lengthy killing spree. While previous antagonists like the Ice Truck Killer and Trinity Killer had left evidence trails that eventually led to their discovery, Saxon operated with unprecedented stealth, living openly in Miami since 2008 without ever raising suspicion. This means that he was present during the Skinner case, Trinity case, Barrel Girl case, and even the Doomsday Killer case, watching Miami Metro fail to catch killer after killer, learning from every investigation. His ghost-like existence began early. After faking his death in a psychiatric facility fire at age 17, Saxon assumed the identity of a deceased boy named Oliver Saxon. He created a perfect cover identity by becoming a building inspector in Miami and establishing a normal life that allowed him to kill without detection for years across multiple cities. Investigators had no leads despite how unique his killings were. Saxon was already steps ahead of them. The brilliance of his deception went beyond simply avoiding evidence. He deliberately created false leads, staging Lyle Sussman's suicide to throw off investigators, making it appear as if the brain surgeon case was closed. Later, he framed Zach Hamilton for Cassie's murder, knowing exactly how to plant evidence that would convince Miami Metro. He understood police procedure so well that he could manipulate it perfectly. Saxon was actively counter-investigating while also hiding, staying informed about Miami Metro's progress through his relationship with Cassie, who was Jamie Bautista's friend. This connection gave him proximity to the very people hunting him down, allowing him to adjust his strategy as needed. He even managed to get close to Dexter himself at Jamie's birthday party, introducing himself with a friendly handshake, while Dexter had no idea who he really was. Perhaps the most horrifying thing about him was his confidence when walking directly into Miami Metro. When questioned about Cassie's murder, he calmly provided alibis that satisfied even seasoned detectives like Quinn and Batista. He even submitted to DNA swab without hesitation, knowing that the system had no record of Daniel Vogel to match against. While sitting in the interrogation room, the same room where dozens of killers had been caught, Saxon appeared completely at ease, even bored by the routine questions. He had absolute certainty in his own invisibility. He had crafted such a perfect cover that he could walk into a police station full of homicide detectives and walk out again without anyone suspecting a thing. Think about it. Trinity killed for over 30 years, but still left evidence. Saxon's trail was completely cold.
I like this place. Miami's a great city. Love the Cuban food, nice weather. Murder solved rate at about 20%.
After each police interaction, Saxon would return to his normal life, unaffected, dating, working, and killing without a hint of concern. When Miami Metro finally did have his DNA on file, they still couldn't connect any crimes because he had never been in the system as Daniel Vogel. His freedom to operate was virtually unlimited. Only Dexter, operating outside the law with access to Dr. Vogel's familial DNA, was able to identify him. This complete invisibility to normal detection methods meant that Saxon could have continued killing indefinitely. But let me know in the comments, do you think that Saxon could have gotten away with it all if Dexter hadn't stepped in? Even when he created a distraction at the hospital by cutting out a veterinarian's tongue, he still managed to navigate a building full of police without getting caught. I still wonder how many people Saxon actually killed in those other cities that were never connected to him. His files showed residences in Galveston, Tallahassee, and who knows where else. And if his ability to avoid police detection wasn't scary enough, what he did to those closest to Dexter was even worse, because he killed people who meant the most. Saxon's most devastating attacks were strategically aimed at the few people Dexter actually cared about. While previous villains like Trinity had accidentally struck Dexter's loved ones, Saxon deliberately targeted the small circle of people who meant something to our protagonist, systematically isolating him emotionally. The pattern began with Zach Hamilton, Dexter's first true protege. After Dexter had invested time teaching Zach Harry's code and saw in him the possibility of legacy and connection, Saxon murdered him and left his body in Dexter's apartment. It was a message that no one in Dexter's circle was safe. The staging was deliberate. The body was placed in Dexter's sanctuary, his apartment with make your own kind of music playing as a signature. He wanted to destroy what Zack represented to Dexter, the possibility that his life had meaning beyond killing, that he could mentor someone and pass on his knowledge. When Saxon took that away, he was attacking Dexter's hope for purpose. Each target was chosen for maximum emotional impact. Cassie was his neighbor, but at the same time, she represented Dexter's potential for a normal connection. By killing her and framing Zack, Saxon attacked two relationships simultaneously. He understood that Dexter's emotional circle was small, which made each loss catastrophic. The most brutal emotional blow came when Saxon slit Dr. Vogel's throat while Dexter watched helplessly through the window. Not content with murdering his own mother, he made sure Dexter witnessed the death of his spiritual mother, the woman who helped create the code that had given him purpose for decades. He positioned her by the window because he wanted Dexter to see everything, to feel powerless, and to know that Saxon was taking from him the person who understood him most completely.
Mother chose the wrong son.
What made this kill particularly devastating was that Vogel had been trying to reconcile with her son just moments before. She believed that she could help him, showing the same compassion that had saved Dexter. By killing her, he was destroying the very foundation of Dexter's identity. If Vogel couldn't save her own son, then what did that mean for Dexter? After each kill, Saxon would observe the emotional fallout with clinical interest. When he made his second attempt to get Deborah in the hospital, it wasn't enough that she might die from her first injury. He wanted to ensure it, to finish what he started. This persistence revealed that these were calculated strikes against Dexter's emotional infrastructure. His final and most devastating attack targeted Deborah, shooting her in the gut after escaping from Dexter's kill room. This was Dexter's emotional anchor, the one person who knew everything about him and still loved him. With Deborah's eventual death from complications after the shooting, Saxon succeeded in destroying everything that mattered to Dexter. The true horror of Saxon's strategy was its effectiveness. By the end of the series, Dexter had lost everyone he cared about. Zack, Vogel, Deborah, his son Harrison and Hannah were forced to flee the country. His life at Miami Metro was over. His apartment, his boat, his routines, all destroyed. Saxon systematically dismantled Dexter's entire existence, and I still believe that no other villain came close to inflicting this level of total devastation. While other killers definitely challenged Dexter physically, Saxon understood that true devastation comes from emotional wounds. Throughout 8 seasons, we watched Dexter strictly follow Harry's code, the careful ritual, the proof of guilt, and the sterile kill rooms. The code was Dexter's identity, his moral framework, the thing that separated him from the monsters he hunted. But Saxon managed to strip all that away in their final confrontation. After losing Vogel and watching Deborah get shot, Dexter was already unraveling. In previous seasons, he had occasionally broken the code, but always with justification and usually returning to its structure afterward. But Saxon's systematic dismantling of Dexter's emotional world pushed him past the point of no return. When they finally came face to face in the holding cell, something fundamental had changed in Dexter. The tension had been building since Deborah was shot. Saxon had taken everything: his mentor, his sister, and his future. The careful Dexter we knew for 8 seasons was gone. In his place was something raw and vengeful. As he entered that cell, there was no plastic wrap, no kill table, no slides, none of the ritual that had defined him, just a man and his target. When Dexter killed Saxon, it was personal and impulsive. He deliberately placed a pen on the table, baiting Saxon to attack him. When Saxon lunged, Dexter didn't fully dodge the attack. He allowed himself to get scratched, just enough to make it look like self-defense. Then he drove the pen into Saxon's carotid artery with brutal efficiency, ending it in seconds as blood sprayed across the room. There was no code here. There wasn't a speech about justice or photos of victims. This was simply a raw, vengeful kill performed in front of a security camera. And in that moment, as Saxon bled out, Dexter actually smiled, something we'd never seen during his kills before: personal satisfaction. Later, when Batista and Quinn reviewed the security footage, Quinn gives a slight nod, as if to say, "I get it." Batista just looked away. They both know what just happened wasn't self-defense. Dexter killed because he wanted to, and they were letting it slide. The most revealing moment came afterward, when Dexter admitted,
"As much as I may have pretended otherwise, for so long all I wanted was to be like other people, to feel what they felt."
Saxon pushed him to abandon what made him different from every other killer, and that's why Dexter ultimately disappears into the hurricane. That's why he walks away from Harrison and his life. Because after Saxon, there's nothing left of the careful, controlled killer that we followed for 8 seasons. In the end, Saxon accomplished what no other villain could. He broke Dexter's code completely and irrevocably. And above all, he took Dexter's identity. I still think that this makes him the most successful villain in the entire series. If you thought other killers changed Dexter, none of them managed to dismantle his entire moral framework like Saxon did. Subscribe if you agree, and I'll see you in the next video about what makes the Ice Truck Killer Dexter's most terrifying villain.